everybody. Happy Tuesday. Do we have everybody?
Yeah, go ahead. I gave them the rules already.
Okay, rules of the road. Well, it's nice to see everybody. Hope you're all doing well. I'll start off with a few comments. Let's see, where do we want to start? Let's start with federal. You know, every day there are new decisions coming down from the courts. I just want to highlight one. So yesterday, the District Court of Rhode Island said that FEMA needed to immediately release grants and funds to states. And I just want to remind folks in this room that while it might be a court decision in another state, we have a lot of states that are similarly situated. In Oregon right now, according to the Oregon Department of Emergency Management, $169 million of FEMA funds in various grants and funding streams are frozen at the moment. Those are dollars that need to go back into communities. So I was glad to see the District Court of Rhode Island, which also backs up what the Supreme Court of the United States has said, those dollars need to be flowing back to states. And as you know, I was out in Harney County on Thursday in Burns surveying the flood damage there. When disasters happen and assessments have been made, those dollars need to flow back to the community. So particularly frustrated about the FEMA dollars still being frozen for the state of Oregon. And as I have said, I'm not going to back down from the fight when the federal government is asking or holding back money from the state. A couple things that have happened since the last time we talked were a couple announcements regarding our schools. For me, it's really important to make sure our classrooms are inclusive and supportive of all of our students. And we have definitely been hearing something different from the Trump administration. So as you know, last week, the Oregon Department of Education, Dr. Charlene Williams sent a letter back to the federal administration saying, we are not going to change what we're doing here in Oregon. When we are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and belonging in our classrooms, our students do thrive. And so that letter, with my full support, was saying, we are not discriminating. Diversity, equity, inclusion is not discrimination. It is part of what we do here in terms of making sure every student can be safe and supported in the classroom. So that letter went back to the administration saying, we have done nothing unlawful, and we are not changing how we do our work here in the state of Oregon. Same with the joint statement that came out yesterday between my office and the Bureau of Labor and Industries, giving guidance to our schools about making sure our classrooms and our schools are safe, regardless of where the students are from, who they are, who their families are, so we can send a clear message that in Oregon, our schools are open and our classrooms are a safe place for our students. So I appreciated working with the Labor Commissioner in that announcement yesterday. I continue to be in full support of what Attorney General Dan Rayfield is doing. As you know, it's sometimes hard to track all the things, but he has been standing up for Oregonians. We have new suits related to library services, voting rights, and he continues to work with other states to have COVID-related funding released. As you know, the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars were cut off from states around money that we were expecting to have here in the States. So the Attorney General is working on that. We are very much in lockstep, making sure that when Oregonians have been hurt and damaged by actions by the federal administration, we will take legal action. So I really appreciate the Attorney General's work on that. Tomorrow, you will be getting notice if it hasn't gone out already. I will be hosting a roundtable with businesses to talk about the impacts of the tariff decisions that the president is making, and we will be hosting that here in Salem with some businesses. So we will get you that information to talk about tariffs and the economy tomorrow. Switching to the legislature, couple highlights for me. Very excited to see the very strong vote on the summer learning bill that came this week in the House, 56-0. Oregon House members supported House Bill 2007. It should be on the Senate floor tomorrow, the day after, to get summer learning money out to this summer, to the programs you needed around the state, as well as the next 2 summers. And I'm very appreciative of legislative leaders for showing their commitment to that issue. I think it's really important for our students to have access to summer learning programs. Most of my priorities My individual bills that I've introduced have continued to move forward. Many of them are on Ways and Means because they have budgetary implications, so feel good about the progress we're making there. Obviously, waiting to see what the May forecast looks like before those final budget decisions are going to get made across the street. Was very glad to see a strong bipartisan vote today on 2251, which is the cell phone ban for schools from bell to bell. I think that's the right thing to do, and look forward to the Senate supporting that as well. I'd like to sign that bill, so hopefully they'll get that done. And another one that I only learned about this week, which I'm excited about, that you might be interested in, is Senate Bill 686, which says that our digital news providers out there, the Googles of the world, would be paying some money into supporting local reporting. And I think I was just talking to Senator Pham last night about that bill, and so hopefully that's going to continue to make progress. I think it's a very innovative way to say, hey, let's support local reporting that then does get shared across multiple platforms, and that allows us to support our local journalists here. So I think that's a very interesting bill. So with that, take some questions.
All right, Sammy, wait for Lucas to come around and give you that mic. Oh, yeah.
And I've been fighting a cold, so I'm a little hoarse, so.
You mentioned that you backed ODE and its response to the Trump administration with TDI efforts. Do you plan to offer that magnitude of support to PBS, which is, of course, in the fire allowing transgender athletes to compete in the sports alliance with their good identity?
I think Portland Public Schools is following state law, and I will support them in their efforts.
And a virtual question from Noticias. Recently, Trump posted on social media he's working on papers to withhold all federal funding from sanctuary states. How many more threats can Oregon take from the government? Or from the president, excuse me.
Well, I know what Oregonians believe in. They believe in communities that are safe and welcoming, and our state laws actually support that. I do believe we're going to continue to see daily, if not daily, probably, for sure weekly, from the Trump administration, really trying to undermine what we've built here in Oregon. And so I'm not surprised by that. And to every specific threat, we will have a specific response like we did with the message coming out of the Department of Education.
Yeah, and hoping you can give us a little more insight into how you're deciding what those specific responses would be. How do you weigh the value of speaking out versus doing something that could put a target on Oregon's back?
I think for me, the principle is, do we know exactly what the administration is asking us to do? If you recall, in the very first couple weeks of the administration, there were there continue to be a lot of executive orders, but they can be very high level, and a lot of times they're directing the federal government to do something until I hear from specific federal agencies about this is what you need to do next. It's very hard for us to respond. So I need specifics, and when we get specifics, we will have a conversation internally of, what is the right approach for Oregon. I think every state's doing the same thing, and that's why in the case of the direct request for individual school districts to certify, we said, we believe as a state, we have certified that we do not discriminate, and that is our answer. So I look at the specifics coming from the federal administration, and then on a case-by-case basis saying, here's how we're going to respond. I think it's difficult because so much is coming down from the Trump administration right now. I also don't think we want to overreact. We need to actually see what they are asking us to do before we should be responding.
Another virtual question and a quick note that the questions will be asked in the order they are received. The next one is from the Q's. Why was the governor's staff list taken offline several weeks ago? The staff list now is only available by request. Was it a security issue, and if so, what happens? When it will be restored, or will it be?
Dick, all I can say right now is I'll confirm it is down, but that's all I can say at the moment.
You do need a mic. Hey, Lucas.
Sorry.
Thank you. Hello, Governor
Hello.
Kotek, Ariel Yakabazi with Quinn 6. We actually spoke in Eugene a few years ago. So
Yeah,
it's
nice to see you.
So the big story that came out of our newsroom yesterday was about Oregon State Hospital.
Yeah.
And I know you chose a new leader in light of the recent leader stepping down. There's a lot of questions about, the recent death at the state hospital. I believe it was last month. So if you could maybe speak to that, what's going on at the Oregon State Hospital that you could speak to?
Well, the Oregon State Hospital is a really important part of our system of care for folks who are suffering with serious mental illness. Patient safety, high standards of care are really important for me. It became apparent that we needed to have a fresh start at the state hospital, and that's what you saw at the end of last week. And at this point, I can't comment on any of the other details related to the patient death, but I'm going to do everything I can to support patient safety and high standards of care at the state hospital.
Next question is from Maximus Osper at NBC News 5 in Medford. Governor, can you please share your reaction to Oregon college students facing troubles with challenges regarding their visas?
I am alarmed by the reports that we're hearing from our Oregon universities about international students who are having their visas challenged. I think when we have international students on our college campuses, not only here in Oregon, but around the country, it promotes intellectual exchange. It's important for the universities. It's important for the students. It's very, very troubling, and I think it will undermine our educational institutions, not to mention, the freedom to learn and the freedom of speech, which I think is important for our universities.
Steve Rollins, KT News. I just wanted to ask again about the Oregon State Hospital and the acting superintendent that's coming in, Dave Baden. Why is he the right man for the job? And then also, too, what's the 30-day plan look like?
Well, for me, it was important to make sure that we have some clear directives for the staff over the next month or so as there's a continuing investigation into the death. So I specifically said, what are we going to do over the next month to improve procedures and protocols to improve patient safety? Dave Baden is, as you know, one of the deputy directors at the Oregon Health Authority. I think he has a long history of experience, leadership, and management. He will not be the long-term interim director. We're trying to figure out a replacement, for him. But I wanted to get someone in there right away to have a different conversation with the staff about training protocols so we can improve patient safety.
Next question is from Lauren Dick at OPD. There were issues at OIA and we fired the director. Same goes with State Hospital. I'm not sure if you caught the discussion on the Senate floor yesterday, but there were a lot of talk about problems at DHS and why you haven't been seemingly more engaged in that agency, which has well-documented problems for years. Can you share your thinking about this agency and the reasons why the director has your confidence, if that is the case?
So I definitely take every agency individually. I don't have a set protocol. If there are incidents or issues at agencies, I look at them specifically for that agency. When it comes to ODHS, the director does have my support and confidence. It's a very complex organization. They deal with very difficult issues. He continues to keep me apprised of the way they are responding to particular situations and improving what they're doing internally to serve the children and families of our state. And right now, the director has my full support. And I have not seen the Senate debate, so I can't respond to that specifically. So.
Hey there. So just talking about the legislature, I know one of the bills that's again forward is your middle housing bill. I just wanted, now that it went under some amendments and some changes, so I wanted to see if you could speak again to what you're really hoping this bill will change compared to 2001, and just your general thoughts about where it's at this point in the process.
Well, what we have seen on mental housing is it has initially been very successful, I think, in bringing different types of housing options into communities. And the reason we have a bill this session is to take it to the next level and getting all the input from folks of how we can simplify permitting and other things, allowing for more options in different parts of established communities. I feel good about the bipartisan support for the bill. We can get you a crosswalk from where we were in 2001 and where this bill would take us if that's helpful. But what I've heard is it's working, it's successful, we need more help, and communities are asking for more guidance, and that's what you see in the bill that is, at this point, I think, in Ways and Means.
Next question is from Nigel Jacobs at Oregon Journalism Project. The Oregonian
I did see the article by Julia at the Oregonian. That was a surprise to me. I will say that we had heard over the last couple of years with the implementation of paid family medical leave that, folks across all workplace settings have been taking more time off to take care of themselves and their families. I think that's the right thing to do. As it relates to our schools, I do think Julia raises an interesting point that we should probably have more tracking of that across school districts so we have a better sense of that. So I thought that was an interesting idea. I do know that to the degree that we can support our educators to be in the classroom on a regular basis, that's something we need to do. But I haven't heard specifically that there's anything causing that additional level of absences in our schools.
Hi, I'm Abby with Salem Reporter.
Hi.
I've been hearing from local homeless service providers some concerns that HUD has missed its 45-day deadline to distribute grant funding, particularly for rapid rehousing and supportive services. I was wondering if this is a situation you're tracking, and is there a plan you would step in?
Like other federal agencies, very concerned about what we're hearing about housing and urban development. It hasn't been an agency that's had as much high national profile, but you're seeing similar things. Significant layoffs, encouraging people to take retirements, undermining long-term staff to support communities. I do think the HUD cuts that we're hearing about and know about are going to impact our ability to fight unsheltered homelessness, as well as produce more options for new housing. We'll have to get you some more details, but it's super troubling that HUD is very much under fire. And what I haven't heard from the federal administration is what their plan is at HUD. It's just, we're just going to cut a whole lot and then not have a plan. That's going to undermine our ability to be successful here in Oregon.
Question here from Ben Boston at Lookout Evening Stink.
Yo, Lookout, yay.
Why did the most recent fatality at Oregon State Hospital spur your action, considering 3 prior patient deaths also had CMS violations?
Well, CMS is also investigating the death. That's standard protocol. I can't go into more details about this. For me, it's about making sure we have the right practices and policies in place for patient safety, and I felt we needed a fresh start, and that's all I can say at the moment.
Go ahead, Alex.
You can tell me if it's better to just check in with your office more broadly about this nuts and bolts thing, but the other day I was writing about the Pacific salmon fisheries,
Yeah.
asking for help. The orchards have asked for help in the last 2 years. Hood River growers. You were just in Harney County dealing with massive floods. There's obviously outstanding wildfire money to be brought to the state from the feds. Is there any sort of calculus of how much money the state's waiting on? And then if you look at this year and the next 3 years, is there anything happening in the legislature right now to gird you from the worst possible scenario, which is the feds don't send any money for the next 4 years?
There's a lot there. Well, first of all, high level first. We need the federal government to be a strong partner when it comes to disaster and improving resilience in our communities. The FEMA cuts are very worrisome. I think you've been seeing the information about the BRIC grants, the BRIC grants being cut, and those are community resilience grants that are really important. So I'm worried about all the federal funding streams being either reduced or completely cut. One of the things we need to see in this legislative session is dedicated new funding to fight and respond to wildfires. It's not the only natural disaster or disaster that we would be facing, but as you saw in my budget, I asked for $150 million to go, instead of to the reserves, to a new pot of money to fight wildfires. The Wildfire Funding Group has a proposal that's under consideration now for not only new money, but rededication of existing money to go towards wildfire response and community resilience. I've been really clear with legislative leaders, do not leave the session without some new money to work on this issue. If we talk about what we saw out in Harney County last week, I don't know if this made it into any of the coverage, but because of the significant wildfire last year, particularly on the east side of the state, and Hardin County in particular. They had massive wildfire there. It has basically turned the landscape hard. And so when the water was running off from the snow melt, it just came running down the mountain, running across the fields, into the community, into the Sylvies River. When we have significant wildfire like that, it's going to have long-term effect, like this type of flooding that we're seeing in Hardin County. We need restoration grants from the federal government. We need to do limiting fuel on the landscape. We need to make sure communities have the ability to harden their homes and their communities, because wildfire is coming. It is going to be, it is the new norm. One of the things that I've been impressed on by legislators is, I've been impressing upon them is, don't leave steam, stay on it. We need to have dedicated new money for wildfire response and resilience, for our community hubs, for fighting. I would just say that I think there's some good ideas on the table, and I keep pushing them. And if I have to get involved, I will by the end of session, because we definitely have to have some new money dedicated to this.
Oh, who hasn't gone? You've gone. Anastasia, got a question?
Yep. So transportation, obviously big priority for the session. First piece that I'm waiting for is to see the results of Senator Bruce Starr's work on accountability and oversight for the agency. I'm 100% supportive on that. We need to grow confidence in the agency that when they receive new money through a new transportation package, that they will be able to deliver on the promises and also have good oversight and accountability. So I'm looking forward to some additional things we could be doing, the agency can be doing, to really make those new dollars produce what we need to see happen. I think the funding framework is a really good start. They're clearly just starting those conversations, but I think it's focused on the right things, in that it's focused on maintenance, the building blocks of our transportation system. It's not a lot of brand new things. It's about, can we pave our roads, maintain our bridges, and do the basics. That framework would do that. They just need to bring that home, and it's going to be a busy couple of months trying to finalize that and get to a vote before session ends.
All right, we've got 6 more minutes. Let's fight it out. Go ahead, Lucas.
Follow-up from Noticias. Amid the threats of immigration arrests, several cultural events have canceled in Oregon. However, the Cinco de Mayo festival is not canceled. What can the state do to quell fears among minorities?
Well, again, I think in Oregon, we embrace diversity. We're interested in supporting all of our communities, particularly our immigrant communities. And we have laws on the books that are very clear about what is allowed and not allowed when it comes to immigration enforcement. I'm glad Cinco de Mayo is continuing the festival in Portland. I was not aware that other cultural events have been canceled because of that fear. That makes me sad. I think that's bad for our communities. It's bad for, obviously, the communities who are trying to host those festivals. I would hope that people will feel comfortable enough to continue to have the things that we hold dear in Oregon, which is having these types of community celebrations. So I know it's a difficult time for our communities, but I hope people will stay the course and continue to have these celebrations.
Defer to you.
So as Washington's winding down its legislature, the end of this legislation are trying to expand their bond authority for the shared bridge, with the idea that they're going to get a lot more revenue from tolls. I know you've instituted a moratorium on tolls here, and you still seem to be a big fan of that payment mechanism. What is tolling's future in Oregon, and the future of this bridge if Washington thinks that they're going to get a lot more money from tolls?
Well, in terms of tolling in Oregon, I would separate the Interstate Bridge project and all the other projects that were being considered for tolling and tolling revenue. That is what I've put on pause, that second conversation, because I think it needs more discussion with local government about its impact on communities if you institute tolling. When it comes to the Interstate Bridge, there is general agreement, because as you all know, I lived up there and worked on the last project. The Interstate Bridge was tolled. It was built with tolling before. I think most people understand to pay a toll for a new bridge to be built. I won't say everybody loves it, but I think that's a different conversation than the other one. I'm very appreciative of Washington State for stepping up, because they do tolling in Washington State. They have the administrative infrastructure to maintain the tolling that we need for the interstate bridge. So I appreciate that they're willing to do the administrative side. I think that they're smart about making sure that they can maximize the dollars through bonding so they can build the project. So I just really appreciate them. What we didn't see back in 2013 over the previous project is this kind of bi-state cooperation, and Washington State is very much committed to getting this project done. We have had significant commitment from the federal government already. Again, I hope the federal government stays the course there, because this bridge is of regional importance, and we could be headed to construction as early as 2027 if we can get all the dollars in place.
New reporter has entered the chat. Jennifer Singh with KTZI. The town of Mapleton was expecting $2.7 million from a brick grant to upgrade the town's water infrastructure. With the cancellation of the grants, the community is now at risk of losing access to clean, safe water. How could the state step in if or when the town loses that access to those funds?
Well, first, I want to put the blame where the blame should go, which is to the Trump administration. I get mad about a whole bunch of things, but when you look at the projects, like the project in Mapleton, that was going to be funded by these brick grants, these are bipartisan, nonpartisan community projects that everybody supports. I have not heard one rationale from the Trump administration why they canceled the brick grants. I don't know what we're going to do for Mapleton, to be very honest. Obviously, we're in legislative session. Legislators could be asking for dollars to make up for that. These are projects that are ready to go. They know when their construction cycles are going to happen. That's why they got brick grants in the first place. They were good projects. I'm sad for the people in Mapleton. I don't know what we're going to do, but the blame should go to the Trump administration, because they can't explain why those dollars shouldn't be going to Mapleton.
Hi, today there was a petition for review filed for Measure 114. Do you have any comment on that?
I do not. I'm not aware of the petition to review. Thank you.
One more question. Lucas, do you have a virtual? He wants it. All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
You got right at the end of my cold, like, okay, here we go. Good timing.